Welcome to Sinful's Horror Stories. If you are new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe now for quality horror narrations on YouTube. Please hit the thumbs up button and make sure to hit the bell so you're notified of all new weekly uploads. Please be sure to comment below and introduce yourself, and I will be sure to respond. If you want to be featured on an upcoming video, email me. My email will be in the description box below as well. Sit back, relax, stay sinful. The story of Beth Thomas is as heartbreaking as it is frightening. She was a beautiful little girl with striking blue eyes who lost her mother when she was 6. Beth and her brother Jonathan were left with their biological father, who sexually abused them. She was only 19 months old and Jonathan 7 months when they were taken away by CPS, which is Child Protective Services. The little boy had been left in his cot all day, every day, leaving him with an oddly shaped head. The siblings were adopted by a childless couple who soon realized all wasn't well with Beth. By the time she was 6, a documentary had been made about the young girl and her extremely worrying and violent behavior. In the documentary, released in 1990, Beth talks about her adoptive parents' habit of locking her in her room to prevent her from stabbing them to death. She also talks about how she herself had sexually abused her younger brother, tortured the family dog, and killed baby birds she had found in a nest. Beth even smashed Jonathan's head into a concrete floor, trying to kill him. Beth was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, which left her unable to form any attachment to a caregiver. Her adoptive parents, Tim and Julie, eventually turned to a controversial therapist, Connell Watkins, who offered to help them. Within a year, Beth's symptoms improved to the extent that she could show remorse for her actions towards her brother. Years later, Beth Thomas has turned her situation around. She is a qualified nurse and has published a book with the help of her second adoptive mother, Nancy. On September 2, 1944, 20-year-old George Herbert Walker Bush was piloting the U.S. Navy's Avenger aircraft. He and 8 other airmen were on their way to the island of Chichijima, which forms part of Japan's Bonin Islands, to attack a radio tower. Japanese soldiers on the island shot the aircraft down, along with the aircrafts of his comrades, all of them landing in the water. Bush made sure to drop the 4 bombs he had in his plane before he bailed out over the water. All of his comrades were captured, tortured, and executed by means of decapitation or stabbing. Japanese Lieutenant General Yoshia Tachibana ordered that 4 of the corpses be cooked and their livers and thighs eaten alongside vegetables and drenched in soy sauce. Bush, who avoided capture, floated in the water on a life raft for hours and was eventually rescued by an American submarine. The Japanese officers responsible for the horrific cannibal incident were later found guilty of and executed for war crimes during trials held in Guam. George Herbert Walker Bush went on to become the 41st President of the United States. Eileen Isabella Ronnie Gibson, better known as Gay Gibson, was an English actress who was rumored to have had a heart condition and would often go blue at the lips and faint during rehearsals. Gibson appeared in a production of Golden Boy by Clifford Odets in South Africa in 1947. When the play wrapped, she boarded the Durban Castle, which was headed from South Africa back to England. It didn't take long for one of the cruise ship's stewards to notice the beautiful 21-year-old actress. According to James Camm's later claims, he and Gibson were intimate in her first-class cabin before both the steward and stewardess buttons sounded and a night watchman arrived. Camm was found inside the cabin, but Gibson had vanished. Camm's story about Gibson's fate changed several times, but he insisted that Gibson had had a fit during consensual sex and died. He later admitted that he had panicked when he realized she was dead and pushed her body through the ship's porthole. He vehemently denied murdering her saying that he only got rid of the body because he was afraid of losing his job and his family. Despite all his changing stories and denials, Cam was convicted of Gay Gibson's murder and handed the death sentence. Soon after, however, the death penalty was suspended for all the crimes in Britain, and Cam served only 11 years for the crime. Up until his death in 1979, he denied murdering Gibson. Gay Gibson's body was never found. 35-year-old Danielle Harkin seemed to be the run-of-the-mill, harried but kind teacher who had a great relationship with her students. She taught at the Lehman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center in St. Petersburg, Florida, and was going through a divorce and custody battle over her 2 young children. Soon after her divorce was finalized in 2012, Harkins began acting strangely. She developed a fanatical interest in religion, in particular angels and demons, and pitched up a fellow teacher's house one day telling her, "You're okay, and you don't have any demons." On July 9th, 2012, Danielle Harkins got a group of her students to join her in creating a small bonfire near the St. Petersburg Pier. The students thought that their teacher had planned a campfire evening for them and were completely shocked when she started accusing them of being infested with demons and demanding they be exorcised. Confused and shaken up, they half-heartedly followed her instructions to dance around the fire while chanting, but drew the line when Harkins told them to cut each other in order to free their demons. Infuriated by their refusal, Harkins doused one of the young people's hands in perfume and set them ablaze. She slashed another student with a broken bottle and cauterized the wounds with a key she'd heated in the fire. She forced several others to cut themselves and similarly close the wounds to keep the demons out. It took a few days for the students to speak up about the incident, and even after Harkins was arrested, the students weren't terribly forthcoming with information on what had happened. Harkins, too, refused to provide any details. She was released from prison after serving only 6 months. Returning to their posts after a mellow and relaxing school holiday, teachers at Riverwood Primary School in Sydney's southwest were expecting to have a lazy day. Nothing could have prepared them for what they stumbled upon when they entered the school's cubby house that day, however. On the floor was a pool of blood, later established to be human and being more than a liter's worth. Police noted that whoever's blood it was would have needed extensive medical treatment because of the extreme blood loss. Despite an extensive search of the surrounding and extending areas, no victim was found. There was also no blood splatter or trail leading to or from the cubby. The lack of a victim was extremely strange, considering the school was enclosed with a 2-meter-high barbed wire fence, and it would have been impossible for the injured person to scale it. Tests later showed that the victim was male. The case remains unsolved. Residents of the Marina del Rey apartment building in Los Angeles were amazed to see a very realistic-looking Halloween prop on one of their neighbors' balconies in October of 2009. The prop consisted of a figure slumped over a chair and what looked like bedding draped over the railing. However, when deputies were called to the building a few days later, residents were beyond shock when they realized the Halloween decoration they'd been gawking at that week was in fact the decomposing body of 75-year-old Mustafa Muhammad Zaid. Zaid had committed suicide by shooting himself in the head with a shotgun. A suicide note was found near the corpse. Zaid had lived in the building for 34 years and was a structural engineer who had worked on high-rise buildings in downtown Los Angeles. 6-year-old Alicia McPhail was visiting her grandparents on the Isle of Butte in 2018 when the unthinkable happened. 16-year-old Aaron Campbell crept into the family's home looking to steal cannabis. When he saw the little girl sleeping, all thoughts of the drug escaped his mind. Instead, he abducted her, carried her to an abandoned hotel, and raped her. He then applied pressure to her face and neck until she stopped breathing. Alicia's body was found within 3 hours of her being reported missing on July 2, 2018. A post-mortem revealed the little girl had suffered 117 injuries. Campbell was arrested 2 days later. After initially denying that he had anything to do with the horrific crime, Campbell confessed that once he laid his eyes on Alicia, he couldn't stop thinking about killing her. During his trial, he also claimed that in the year preceding the murder, he constantly thought about killing or raping someone. Campbell was amused that it took police 2 days to arrest him, and said it took great restraint on his part to keep from laughing during the trial. While confessing the murder, he even told authorities that he was quite satisfied with the murder. He was handed a 27-year sentence, which was reduced by 3 years in 2019. If you ask me, why wasn't he handed the death sentence, or at least life in prison? What do you guys think? On January 20th, 2016, a dead man was found in a burning home in central Fresno. The Fresno Police Department's Public Information Officer, Lieutenant Joe Gomez, reported at the time that the 51-year-old local activist, John Lang, was found with stab wounds to his abdomen and upper back. Later, a spokesperson for the Fresno County Sheriff refuted these claims, saying that Gomez had released incorrect information and that John Lang had 3 self-inflicted stab wounds to the chest and had started the fire in a suicide mission. 5 days later, Lang's body was discovered in the blazing house. He left a Facebook message for ABC 30 reporter Corin Hogard, stating, "Corrupt Fresno cops are going to try and kill me this weekend, possibly tonight. This is no joke." On his own social media accounts, he posted several rants about the Fresno Police Department and County Sheriff's Office being corrupt. Lang followed this up with videos of a security camera outside his house, which he claimed was being used by police officers to watch him. Lang also believed that his car was being tracked. Several websites and forums have since claimed that Lang may have been truthful in his claims, that he feared the police would kill him, expressing doubt about the bungling of the information that Gomez provided. Some are also convinced that there are several corrupt officers in the Fresno Police Department who would have done anything to silence Lang. On June 12, 1977, George Child and his son were driving down Holocong Road in Buckingham Township when he spotted an object in the underbrush of a steep rise known as Church Hill. He drove across the railroad tracks and headed up the hill to get a closer look. He and his son then made the terrifying discovery of a naked body of a woman lying face down about 10 feet down the slope. They continued driving on to the next house and asked that the caller call the police. 15 minutes later, the area was swamped with police officers. A team of officers and paramedics were tasked with turning the body over, and it was only then that the true extent of the crime was revealed. 20-year-old Eileen Ritterson had been eviscerated, with nearly all of her lower organs being removed. Her insides had been washed out and stuffed with a towel. She had bruisings at the back of her scalp, indicating that she'd been stuck with a heavy object and had multiple stab wounds to her chest. At the time, detectives thought the viciousness of the murder may have been part of a dark ritual or even to tear out an unborn child. The young woman's uncle, Harry Ritterson, was initially suspected of the murder, and many family members also believed that he was a murderer. However, he was never charged, and no other suspects were identified. Sean Ritterson's murder remains a mystery. Thank you all for watching and listening. Please make sure to leave a like on this video once again. If you want your story featured on an upcoming video, email my email in the description box below. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay sinful.